OfflineTV, one of the longest standing and most popular content creator gaming groups out there, consisting of popular creators like Scarra, Pokimane, Lily Pichu, Disguised Toast, Michael Reeves, Yvonne, and formerly FedMyster. But why do I say formerly? Well, that's because he was recently kicked out of the house due to some serious allegations made against him by Yvonne that were all corroborated by the rest of the OfflineTV house members, and even by FedMyster himself to an extent. He doesn't deny that these things happened, but he does deny the predatory nature of them. Either way, this all came out with a tweet longer from Yvonne with the title, My Truth. It reads out, I want to start this off by saying, Fed was the first friend I felt like I made at OfflineTV. He was very welcoming and I spent the most time with him out of everyone. We got along really well and quickly became really good friends. We would go on late night food runs and watched movies together in my room since I had a TV. He fell asleep frequently there and it became a pretty normal thing. We always stayed on our sides of the bed, and nothing ever really happened until it did. I was lying in bed with all the lights off. The door opened and Fed came in. Drunk from going out that night, he crawled into my bed and laid there for a bit. Then he grabbed my hand and held it, and I didn't move at all because I was shocked. He then brushed my hand against his cheek and kissed it after. I was still in a state of shock, trying to process what's happening, because this guy is supposed to be my friend. He also knew I had a boyfriend at the time. Next, he stuck his hand inside my sleeve and touched my side next to my chest. Although it wasn't exactly my chest, it was close enough to make me feel extremely uncomfortable, and I feel like that is not a place where a friend should be touching me. I still couldn't move at this point, and in my head I was just begging for him to not go any further, praying he would stop there. He did, retracted his hand, and made it seem like he was sleeping. 10 minutes later, he woke up and said, "Whoa, how'd I get here?" I asked, "Do you remember anything?" And he said no, and left my room. The next day I went up to his room, and asked if he remembered what happened last night. He said no. I told myself that if he forgot, then maybe he didn't know what he was doing, because he was drunk, and I didn't want to bring it up, because I didn't want to make it weird between us. A few weeks later, I was lying in bed again, and he came in drunk, again. He laid down next to me and told me he was sorry for what happened last time, and that he overstepped boundaries. So then I thought to myself, did he remember this whole time, and lied about it? I didn't say anything, and 10 minutes later, he did it again, minus the t-shirt part. Again, I'm scared to say anything, and he fell asleep next to me. The next day, he also acted like nothing ever happened, and I asked him at some point if he remembered anything, and he said no, again. I kept this secret to myself for a very long time. The only people I could tell were my boyfriend at the time and a close friend of mine. And out of respect for me, he didn't tell anyone. I felt like if I told anyone at OfflineTV, the world would come crashing down, and that OfflineTV would die/cease to exist. So I never did. I minimized it a lot, and carried on throughout my days as usual, but small things in me started changing, without me realizing it. I started avoiding Fed more. I went from hanging out with him all the time to almost never. I tunneled into League of Legends because it felt easy to be busy in a game so he couldn't talk to me or bother me. It became the easiest way to avoid him, being addicted to a game. One day, I told him what happened between us, and he said he didn't remember/know what happened. He proceeded to say he was a horrible person, and I felt bad and started comforting him. I will always remember that one of the first things he asked me after he found out was, "Did you tell anyone?" and proceeded to panic when he felt like people could know. I also told him that my boyfriend at the time, Sheen, doesn't blame him, and knows he isn't a bad person deep down, in which he responded, yeah, it's in his best interest not to? Which it wasn't, by the way. Sheen is just a super nice guy, who tried to be understanding and give him the benefit of the doubt. He said all these things, but never once did he apologize to me after learning about the situation that he forgot. Thinking back, his thought process was super messed up, because he was more worried about people finding out than how he hurt me. I minimized it so much, that I would forget at times it even happened in the first place. It was weird because there were certain times where he could trigger me, but other times, seeing him was fine. It triggered me when he'd knock on my door, barely waiting, and despite no response, he'd just come in. I remembered I tried locking my door a few times, and he gave me a hard time for doing so. Why the fuck is your door locked? Multiple times where he'd come in at night without me saying he could. Everyone else in the house always knocks and waits for a response, but not him. It also triggered me whenever he'd walk in my room, jump on my bed, and start going on his phone. But again, I minimized, and honestly felt really bad for feeling that way towards him. I kept this all to myself, mostly because I didn't want to ruin the peace. I wanted to avoid the situation, and I thought he would change after what happened with me. He didn't. He proceeded to overstep boundaries with other girls in our friend group, and each girl tried to keep it to themselves, cause they would just think, oh, it's just Fed, or he is just lonely/drunk. He even did it to Lily. She gave me permission to share this. When she was going through her hard breakup with Albert, Fed also walked into her room while she was drunk. She was lying down, and he asked if she wanted a massage. She said sure, and he started off massaging her leg, and then up her thighs. A week or so later, he was drunk and laid down next to her, and told her he liked her. She then felt uncomfortable with everything, and he asked her to not tell anyone what happened. Again, thinking back, I felt like he tried to take advantage of Lily when she was in a really vulnerable state. One night, the girls were hanging out together, and when the topic of Fed came up, we realized we all had our stories about him, whether it was him lying about certain situations to be in his favor, or lying to us about girls leading him on when he was the one who got rejected, or manipulating us to have certain ideas of people/situations. Poki especially suffered a lot from this, and I'll let her explain if she chooses to do so. The stories shared were mainly Fed overstepping boundaries, being overly touchy, in which we all thought were just Fed things. We thought it was fine because we told ourselves, that's just who he is. As we shared each other's stories, we realized it was not fine. When all the sexual harassment/abuse stories started coming out on Twitter, my coping mechanism just broke. I couldn't minimize it anymore, and I suddenly felt everything that happened crashing down on me all at once. I couldn't ignore it any longer, and I realized what happened was not okay. It couldn't be swept under the rug. I didn't want to see him, talk to him, or work with him. The pattern of problematic behavior led us to decide that we needed to have an intervention with him, to get him to realize he needs to change for the better. So we all sat down together as a group, and everyone started sharing with Fed how he once hurt them. It was extremely emotional, with a lot of crying, and at the end of it, he seemed very apologetic, and understanding what he had done wrong. This was the first time he apologized to me about everything, and it did feel really nice to hear. I genuinely felt super happy that it seemed like Fed was very accepting of everything and willing to be better. I wasn't planning on releasing any statement from my end, but unfortunately, his behavior since then made me feel like he wasn't really sorry. His actions and words showed he was still avoiding responsibility, that his priority was still himself and his career, versus being a better person and resolving the hurt he caused us. My intention for the statement is not to destroy him, but to warn other girls about his behavior, how he pushes boundaries using alcohol as an excuse for his action. He needs to be held accountable for his actions, learn from his mistakes, and not avoid them like how he was trying to again this time around. I don't think Fed is a bad person, but we all made excuses for his behavior for a long time now, because we truly loved him as a friend, even despite all this. Ultimately, what I'd want in the end would be to see him taking steps towards getting help and striving to be a better person. A few things I would like people to keep in mind. Everyone in OfflineTV helped me immensely throughout all this. They went through great measures to make sure I was okay, and that I would be okay in the future as well. When they learned of this, they never asked me to be silent. In fact, they tried their best to stand up for me and speak for me when I didn't know how to approach this. They made me feel comfortable and empowered to speak my truth, because I would have felt too scared otherwise. It may not be possible, but I would like it if people could refrain from shitting on OfflineTV/negative comment. I would appreciate that a lot, because everyone there helped me the most throughout this entire thing. It would really hurt to read awful comments towards the people I tried so hard to protect. Lastly, please remember that Fed is human, and refrain from extremely hurtful comments that I know he's going to receive. Words can have a very scary impact, and again, I want to emphasize my intention with this statement is not to destroy him. I just felt a strong need to speak my truth, and put a warning out there to other women until he does get better. I don't believe he's a bad person deep down. He is someone that even to this day I can't help but care about, and things would honestly be a lot better if I didn't. Wow, that was a pretty hefty statement from Yvonne. Pokimane shows her support by sending a heart emoji. The OfflineTV Twitter account quote tweets Yvonne and says, "We strive to be a place where everyone can feel comfortable and safe. With that in mind, Fed has been removed from OfflineTV. He will also no longer be living with us. We wholeheartedly support Yvonne, her statement, and anyone else who has the courage to share their story. Valkyrie responds to this by saying, "Sending all my love to each and every one of you." Fed commented on this whole situation by saying, "I want to start off this statement by apologizing for my absence the past few days. Earlier this week, some of my friends sat me down and expressed that I had on several occasions made them feel uncomfortable or uneasy. In light of recent events, this pained me greatly as it was not and has never been my intention to hurt those closest to me. I fully understand the importance of having their voices heard, and I believe I should take a step back, give them space, and listen to their story. I've made it a point this year to be better, and as I often mention, I'm trying to take more responsibility in my life. I owe it to both my friends and everyone who supports me to own up to my actions, and that starts by listening to those I've hurt. I want to make it clear that my intentions were never to act maliciously or predatorily. I am flawed. I have issues that impede my friendships, issues with myself, but I am not a predator, and I never wanted this to happen." Endless Overtime responds to Fed by saying, "Fed, I know you are a good person. I'm both shocked and disappointed that this happened. I hope that leaving OfflineTV and taking time off will help you grow as a person. Stay real, Fed." LS responds to him by saying, "What the fuck do you mean, I know you're a good person? You don't fucking know him at all. That's the whole point. You know an idea that is presented to you via the form of clips, stream persona, and other things. This is one of the many parts of the whole movement. People aren't who you think." Ovilee comments on all of this by tweeting out, "I am genuinely confused why some of the stories I have read over the past few days are on social media not being handled privately. When did shitty attempts at flirting and getting laid turn into sexual harassment or even rape? Why do names have to be named? If somebody wants to raise awareness or simply share their story, wouldn't it be better to do that without starting a witch hunt? I know this is an issue with many layers, and I am honestly just trying to understand. Please educate me." Shox responds to her by saying, "I think this is a brave stance to take. Since it is a very nuanced topic, Ovilee, I have done a lot of soul searching as well about what I consider acceptable, etc. But what I found helpful is the consideration that what's acceptable to me may not be acceptable for another person." Ovilee responds, "I absolutely agree with you. However, I am having a hard time understanding why these boundaries are not being set in a dialogue on a person-to-person basis." Emily responds to Ovilee's tweet by saying, "I think it's good that serious incidents are made public. It raises awareness about how many victims and abusers there are. However, I think it's some of the stories that are just shitty compliments, bad attempts at flirting, etc. takes away the point of many of the serious cases." Yvonne responds to her by saying, "I also got a lot of comments about how it was a bad attempt at flirting. Yeah, I guess when I flirt, I also stick my hand inside their shirt." Emily responds to her by saying, "Sorry to hear. It's hard to draw a line between bad attempt at flirting and sexual assault. However, what can seem as something innocent to some people can obviously be completely different for the person assaulted, and everyone has the right to feel what they feel." Pokimane responds to Ovilee's tweet by saying, "If someone isn't listening privately, and you are aware of their power, influence, plus likelihood to continue behaving inappropriately towards other women in the future, it gets to a point where it can be important to put out a public warning." In addition to this response, Pokimane also made a statement on her Twitch channel about the whole Fed situation and her personal involvement in it. The whole clip is about 50 minutes long, so obviously I won't be showing all of it here, but if you want to see the full thing instead, it will be linked in the description below. Either way, this is what she said.
"Me and Fed would have many issues. One of the more prominent ones revolved around an incident where we threw a house party, and he knew that there was someone coming to the house party that I was really looking forward to seeing and getting to know. And when that guy came to the house party, Fed kind of stuck to him like glue all night. Later that night, after the party ended, I texted this guy, and I was like, oh, kind of sucks, like, we didn't get to hang out. And he was like, yeah, you seemed really busy. And I was like, me busy? Like, you and Fed were, you know, 2 peas in a pod all night. And he goes, oh, yeah, like, what's going on with you guys? And I was like, what do you mean, what's going on? And the guy informed me that Fed told him that we were together when we weren't, and that he told the guy not to tell anyone, not to talk to anyone about it, not to talk to me about it. That was the first time that Fed just like massively broke my trust, and I could never trust him or look at him the same way. I retroactively asked someone else from kind of the past whether Fed had said something similar to him, And they did. And I very recently, just today, found out that he said the same thing to another guy. And the guy I found out about today was someone else that like I was seeing or wanting to get to know. To a fault, I'm a very confrontational person, so I confronted Fed about this. And he admitted he did it, he admitted it was wrong, and that he fucked up. This was not the first or last time that Fed would lie to me. So I had a lot of trust issues with him, not to say that I'm a perfect person by any means. So yeah, I'm quite the confrontational person, and I would often confront him about things I felt he did wrong, but he would only sometimes acknowledge his mistakes. But more often than not, he would ignore me, and now I find out oftentimes ran around to others, making me sound crazy. I want to share something that the Just Friends girls wanted me to share on their behalf. At the Just Friends house, he would come over anytime things were off or tense at the OfflineTV house and just like be in their rooms, never knocking, just there, which they came to accept as just Fed things. While he was there, he would always imply things were bad between me and him, push false narratives that make him look good and make me look really bad. Later, when the Yvonne incident happened, and when they did not know that this happened, he would come over to their house and tell them things like, Yvonne is taking up a content creator spot in our house. She does literally nothing but play League, and talk about how much he wanted her out of the house. He would constantly talk shit about girls he would show fleeting interest in and then tarnish their reputation. They could tell girls felt scared of being on bad terms with him and OfflineTV, and the girls felt like that was a bit of an abuse of power. He essentially knew that he was protected by the OfflineTV. Back to my perspective, that was their part. All us girls got together just to chat, and it was crazy to see that just about every girl had a Fed story. We all realized we brushed off our negative experiences in order to not disturb the social circle, to avoid issues, and because we figured they were just slip-ups. This was the moment we truly realized how big of a problem his behavior was, and that ultimately we needed to plan an intervention of sorts. So this talk with all the girls, along with everything that was shared during the intervention, helped us piece together and realize that he would lie about me a lot, create narratives in his favor, and insinuate a lot of negative things which drove everyone around me away from me. It's just baffling that I find this out just now, basically. Even Scarra told me that he thought I was crazy, either because of the issues that I said I had with Fed back in the day, or via the things Fed would say about me. And that same sentiment has been echoed by a lot of my other friends after the recent intervention and the recent talks. There's been multiple instances of Fed pursuing a girl in the scene, suddenly losing interest, and then bad-mouthing that girl to us, giving us a negative impression of that girl. We would later find out from these girls that he made unwanted advances on them. While there's nothing wrong with shooting your shot, the way he does it and the way he acts after he gets rejected is really problematic because it damages the girl's reputation and hurts their character. As people within OfflineTV, if we all think badly of someone and our friends also think badly of someone, that can be really impactful on someone's career in esports or on Twitch. We had multiple girls tell us how they were afraid that OfflineTV hated them. I had to have a very serious talk with Yvonne about a potential new hire for OfflineTV because we were worried how Fed would act with a girl working under him. And I just don't think that it is normal for a company to have to worry about a female hire being taken advantage of. And that power dynamic that would have happened if we hired a girl genuinely concerned me. And this was prior to me knowing a lot of the stuff that I know now. Toast also sat down with Fed a year ago. At this point, Toast was the only one from OTV who was aware of the incident with Yvonne and Fed, and he warned Fed about the growing concern within our friend group in regards to his behavior around girls. Fed responded by getting angry at Toast and claimed to not have remembered the incident with Yvonne and he seemed more concerned with who else knew about the incident and about anything else, and who had said what about him. I want to put a huge emphasis on this. The way he shit-talked Yvonne and Lily to me and others, particularly, I will just recount my experience, is so frustrating knowing what happened between them. The Yvonne incident happened, and Fed would start talking to me. I'm so sorry for being emotional. He would talk to me about how Yvonne was lazy and not working enough and playing League all the time. And I was concerned. And he would say, oh, she won't work on OTV stuff with me or brainstorm and blah, blah, blah. And this discussion got to the point of us almost letting Yvonne go from the company because we thought she just wasn't interested enough in working with us. When in reality, her behavior was entirely because of the incident that happened between them two. And so it just blows my mind that he would try to manipulate the narrative in that way. And kind of aggressively, if that makes sense. He was really not wanting her there anymore. As for Lily, after the incident with her and him, and after he tried to get with her basically, when she was really vulnerable and heartbroken and in probably the worst mental state I've ever seen her after her breakup with Albert, after he tried to get with her in that state, he started complaining to me about how Lily and Michael were hanging out a lot and excluding him, and how he felt lonely, and how he felt like Lily ditched him as a friend. And I genuinely felt so bad for Fed. Again, mind you, he's been the closest person to me in the house for a long time. And even after our friendship became kind of stale, I just wasn't that much closer with anyone else. So he would tell me all this stuff, and I felt so bad for him. I was like, oh, they must not realize that they're excluding him and he feels bad. And yeah, and I talked to Lily and I was like, hey, maybe spend a bit of time with Fed, he's lonely and stuff. And I was trying to help everyone. And I didn't know at the time, probably the reason Lily wasn't spending much time with him is because he tried to come on to her when she was sad as shit. I genuinely had no idea, and he warped my perception to be against these people. And so I know exactly how all of my friends were against me. I can't even imagine the way he warped their perception against me. I see a lot of people excusing Fed's behavior by blaming alcohol, or blaming Yvonne and Lily for freezing up and not saying no. It makes me really worried that with people minimizing his behavior, plus diehard fans that are seemingly ready to support him at any moment, I can just imagine him coming back within 2 months, saying that he's been sober for a few weeks, and thinking he's a different or changed person. But I feel it's really important right now to do this because I still see people excusing his behavior, acting like they know him, and trying to minimize what happened to Yvonne and Lily without seeing the bigger picture. If you're upset about us sharing these things publicly, understand that we just felt like we couldn't enable his behavior anymore, that we tried to address it and we saw no change. This was an incredibly difficult decision to come to. It was not our first resort by any means, and initially, Yvonne wasn't even going to come out with a statement at all. During the intervention, he was surprisingly apologetic. We were borderline impressed at how apologetic he seemed. His words were the things that we wanted to hear. However, after the intervention, via his actions and his words to other people, it was made very clear to us that his priorities did not lie with his victims, but with his public image. His priority was not to make things better or to be a better person, but instead it felt like it was to salvage his career and figure out his next move. Within a day or two after the intervention, he was already running to our mutual friends and trying to seem like the victim in this situation for being let go from OTV.
That's about it from Pokimane. There's also video statements I'm going to share from Scarra, the founder of OfflineTV, and Yasuo, FedMyster's former best friend. But before we go into those statements, I'd like to show something that's a bit more contrasting to what we just listened to. And of course, the person to give that contrasting statement is Keemstar. He tweets out this Twitter video with the caption, "I'm mad."
I'm going to have a little bit of a rant, and I haven't researched everything, so I don't have all the details. So maybe there's something extra to this story that I just don't know about, right? But I just read a Me Too movement or Me Too statement about these gamers. They live in a gamer house. One's a guy, one's a girl. The guy's drunk. He jumps into her bed. He's like putting his hand up against her chin. He like grabs her hand, kisses it. He grazes his hand across her chest. And the girl says, I was so shocked by all these three things that I just didn't even react. I just was froze. I didn't say anything. It's your responsibility to say something. If a guy's making a moves on you and you don't want that to happen, you got to say no. Like that's your responsibility. You have to say no. You can't just not do anything and then be like, he wronged me. What? You gotta say no. You have to say no. And what are we talking about? This? We're talking about kissing a hand? That's what we're talking about? Now, if you would have said to him, get away from me, and he still grabbed your hand and kissed it, fine. But when you say nothing, no like, hey, you're crossing the line, hey, too much, and he just kisses your hand, why didn't you pull your hand away? Like, I don't get it. Maybe there's more details out there that I just don't know about, right? Maybe there's more stories out there about this individual. Maybe he is a creep, right? But based on what I just read, and I didn't even read the full thing because I couldn't get through it because I was so angry that this person's getting Me Too'd for kissing a girl's hand. You, the female, have a responsibility to say, no, stop. I don't like this. Get away. No, you have that responsibility. I don't have all the details, but if this whole man's career is completely finished and ruined from kissing a girl's hand, I think your career should be ruined too. Because that's not right. It's not right. It's not right. That's not right. It's not sexual abuse. It's not rape. It's just not right. If he crossed the line, you need to tell him right away, you're crossing the line. And if he doesn't back off, then expose.
He continues to talk about this by saying, based on these responses from Twitter, stand corrected. Kissing a girl's hand is sexual harassment, borderline rape. Even if the girl gives no verbal or physical signs that she's uncomfortable, that the man is crossing boundaries, it's still rape. I am smarter now. Thanks, Twitter. Gaming entertainers will have to get written contracts with females in the future before they even start flirting. That's the only way to resolve this problem. TwizFizz responds to Keemstar's comments by saying, I don't know, maybe guys shouldn't jump into girls' beds and start harassing them? She then makes a tweet of her own to elaborate on this where she says, it's sad that nearly every girl I've known has a story of sexual harassment. It's sadder that a minority of girls are using #MeToo movement just for clout. It's sadder still how many guys are hyper-focused on this minority instead of the actual issue at hand. Just tired of seeing peers on my timeline stating this is a reason they won't befriend women. Kinda sounds like you'd only befriend girls you'd want to fuck. Ovilee comments on this entire situation by saying, these are my unorganized, unfiltered thoughts. Sorry if I'm just too upset to craft something better right now. Please support the women who have come out with their stories. I'm sure there are still more to come.
Couldn't get my thoughts out onto text, so I'm going to try it in video. It's unorganized. Sorry. You just had the sweetest person in the entire freaking world come out and share her most traumatic and vulnerable experiences with you. Not only you, but with millions of other people who have access to the internet. This is stuff that she may not have told anyone. She may have kept it to herself for years. She may have been living with the disgusting feeling inside herself or trying to lie to herself and tell her, forget that it ever happened. If after reading that, you come out and respond to it by trying to invalidate her trauma, invalidate her experience, by asking, why didn't you come out and say something sooner? Or why didn't you say something in that moment? You're part of the fucking problem. It is not that simple. When you have someone who is overpowering you, on top of you, next to you, pressuring you, you're incapacitated, that is not always an option. Especially for a girl. There is always a fear, whether it's in terms of power of strength or just terms of power of fucking, I don't know, employment or some shit like that. That is not always an option. And the fact that she was still able to come out years later and finally share her story after finding the strength, after finding the courage to speak her truth, to try to help other women out there and make sure that nothing of this sort happens to them from this individual ever again. You're incredibly insensitive to try to invalidate that. Don't be on the bad guy's side. Be on the good guy's side. The bad guys are out there saying, well, was she drunk too? Oh, well then I guess it's okay. Oh, it's just regret. It's not fucking regret. It's abuse. It's assault. Be on the good guy's side. Support these women who are coming out and sharing their stories. Fuck, man, I don't even know where else. I don't even know what else.
Now, with those opinions being heard, let's hear what Scarra, the founder of OfflineTV, had to say about all of this.
I will say, in general, it is not just an alcohol problem that made him do what he did. He ends up always kind of manipulating the truth to make himself look better in a lot of different ways, in ways that you don't really need to. You know, if your friend group, if you're like friends with someone, like I always trust Fed and whatever he says about anyone. It came back to a situation where I found out that it wasn't always the truth. We came out with the statement because after we had a 3-hour intervention with him and 7 other girls, and 6 of the girls all came out with stuff against him, he proceeded after that day to contact the people who weren't there and kind of do exactly what we told him was the problem, which was to tell them only his side of the story and kind of spin it in a way where he ended up being the better person. But it's like, I don't think that's like, we just had an intervention about it, so it felt kind of weird. I hope that you don't end up kind of flaming Yvonne or Lily or Pokey for coming out, or Fed. Honestly, even after all we've been through, he has done a lot of good for us and OfflineTV, as well as I still deep down think he is a good person, but he has a very flawed mindset with how to approach situations. The thing I wanted to focus on is I saw a lot of comments about Offline, and just in general, I feel like as someone who is kind of the head of Offline, although to be honest, the way Offline generally works, I don't want to delve into the specifics, but it's like a combination of all the core members, and many of the core members take up responsibilities of what they're comfortable with and what they end up doing. I would say like Fed was always the content ideation, plus him and Lily help control like kind of the emotional aspect of the group. Me, Toast, and Pokey always controlled kind of the more business aspect, kind of more logical things that would occur on either day by day, and Yvonne would help facilitate like the entire spectrum across the board. And that's how we've operated for a while. Recently, because of Fed exploding on his stream, like literally like top 2 streamer in his section, top 1 Marvel streamer ever. He invented a category pretty much. Ever since that happened a couple months ago, he was our content lead and our ideation person for all of our YouTube videos. And he stopped being very effective at it because obviously balancing 2 things at once is a problem. And in the past, it was a problem to the point where he had to quit streaming. So it came back, and obviously we don't want him to give up his success. It is incredibly stupid for him to go back to being just our guy working our videos. So we ended up looking for another person to help us full time. And we brought him in about kind of a couple weeks ago. I know a lot of people are worried about like Fed's disappearance means that Offline ends up dying. I will not argue that Fed was a core member of Offline and hard carried Offline, especially during our 2019 arc. What season is that? Season 2? But I will say every single member of Offline is important. But every person of Offline kind of contributes in their own way, I would say. And I don't really want to downplay other people by saying just Fed ended up being the reason why we're successful, when realistically, like without all the people that we had, Offline would never get off the ground. When people ask me like the secret to success for Offline, I always tell them it's the people. And I don't think they really understand, because businesses come up to us and they're just like, how do you do it? And we're like, it's the people. And now I could say it's the people, you know, luck, the people, and trauma. So that's actually the fucking chemical X.
Now that we've heard what Scarra had to say, let's take a look at what streamer Yasuo had to say about this. Someone who was best friends with FedMyster up until only a few days ago.
So pretty much, I knew about shit a little earlier than you guys. The reason I knew about stuff, about a week ago, I want to say, like 4 days ago, 5 days ago, Fed called me. He called me on the phone and he's like, yo, pretty much I'm getting kicked from Offline. He's like, yeah, pretty much we had an intervention, and they talked to me about how like I made them uncomfortable, and like, you know, there was this one instance where I got drunk, and then like I touched Yvonne's shirt with my nose, and like I put my hand on like her side, and then like, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I was an idiot and I forgot about it and I lied. He didn't tell me about the Lily situation. He told me a little bit about Pokey. He told me a little bit about the situation with him and Yvonne. He pretty much didn't tell me shit. I'm gonna be real. And in case you guys don't know, by the way, Fed's like supposedly one of my best friends. So he pretty much really didn't tell me much. He downplayed the situation to me a lot. Like, my instant reaction when one of my closest friends is telling me that, I was like, yo, what the fuck? Offline TV's overreacting, bro. Like, that's fucked up. That's not cool. It was supposed to be a private matter. They weren't going to go public with anything. Everything was going to be private. And the reason it went public instead of private was because Fed did this shit he did to me. He did to multiple people. And he pretty much went to people and downplayed the situation to all, like, our friends, and acted like he made it seem like he did less than he actually did. And it made it seem like he's a better person than he really was, because the shit he did is unforgivable and it is fucked up. At this point, once the thing came out, I text Fed and I say, yo, if you want to talk, hit me up whenever, bro. I'm here for you. This is when the statements went live. And he's like, I appreciate it. It's going to be a rough couple days. And I said, for sure, it won't be easy, but this is the worst of it, and we're going to get past it. I talked to Toast. I talked to Celine. I talked to Yvonne. I talked to Pokey. I talked to literally everyone in the situation. I talked to Don Moore. I talked to Ibrahim. I talked to everyone involved. And what I realized is that Fed literally told me probably 5 or 10% of the situation. Even the stuff that's public right now that you guys think you know about Fed, you guys don't know even the fucking half of it. You don't know a fourth of the situation. He's done so much more fucked up shit than you can even like actually think about. Like some shit like he's done to me, he's done to Dom, he's done to other people. Pretty much he used a bunch of shit that we told us against him. I don't want to get into the specifics because I don't want to leak more stuff, or I don't want to even involve myself in the drama. I just want to tell you guys that the shit he did is unforgivable. And it's shit that, like, to me, you guys saw how much I messaged him and how much I was trying to be a good friend for him. He did shit that I can't forgive. I can never forgive it. I haven't even messaged him about it yet, but I can never forgive him for the shit he did. Take my word for it. It wasn't just a situation where he did fucked up shit to the girls like Yvonne or Lily. One, he did fucked up shit to almost every girl in that group, whether it was manipulation, lying, sexual harassment, whatever it was. He pretty much did something wrong to every single girl. But not only that, he literally committed the ultimate bro sin to me and others. Like, I don't know if other people are going to talk about their experiences. They can. I'm going to keep mine private. To me, the most fucked up part is when he called me and explained the situation to me and downplayed the situation. He didn't apologize about like anything really to me. He pretty much downplayed it to me and acted like nothing happened. And the thing is, to me, is when shit hits the fucking fan for him, and all of Offline pretty much is already kicking him and know the shit's fucked up and like he's not gonna live in the house. The fact that he couldn't come out and tell me the whole truth or tell me that he's wronged me in the past as if I wouldn't find out is even more fucked up. Like, I literally cannot believe it, because over the past 3 years, in case you guys don't know, this is a guy that I've literally been one of my best friends. I literally lived with him for over a month. I stayed with him. I went to fucking parties. I went to events. I went everywhere with him. We were literally stuck to each other like fucking glue at events. I was always talking about girls. He was always talking to me about girls. I literally told him, like, pretty much, there was a time where, remember, I was going through my depression and my anxiety shit, like last year, late 2019. Literally, I talked to 2 people the most about it. I talked to Ibrahim, my roommate, who's like literally my best friend. And then I also talked to Fed about it. Those are the only 2 people that I talked to about it. So that should show you how much I trusted him, pretty much. But the stuff that I told him while I was depressed and anxious, and like him helping me, the fact that he used the shit I told him against me, and did shit that like made me more sad. I didn't know at the time, obviously, but I found out now that he did more fucked up shit than you can imagine. Like, it's something unforgivable. You can't go back and like forgive that. You can cry if you want. I'm not gonna cry. Don't worry. The extent of all the stuff he did, unless he takes over a year off to go to therapy, to go to a psychiatrist, to dive fucking deeper, learn about Buddhism, until he does like literally all, he is not remorseful. And I am telling you that. I am telling you that because I literally thought of him as a brother before. I still think, in general, he's done a lot of good. I think he was a great friend from what I knew. But all this behind the scenes shit and all the manipulation and all the lying and all the fucking hiding of the truth he did is unforgivable. Yvonne, Lily, Pokey, they all were nice about the situation too. People are giving them hate right now online to like all of them, like, hey, why'd you cancel Fed? This is fucked up. It should have been a private matter. Why? No, it should not have been. He's literally a public figure. People think of him as this fucking idol. If people didn't know about this and it was fucking private, trust me, he would have been back to streaming next week. He would have acted like nothing happened, and he probably would have still done this shit to other people. This is shit that's literally, like, it's deeper than streaming. It had to be public. I'll read Fed's statement just to show you guys, like, why I'm so disappointed nowadays. Is because all that he really says is, like, I'm sorry for not being here. I'm not a predator. I didn't want to be a predator. It's not about being a fucking predator. The shit he did is unforgivable. The shit he did to me, he wasn't, well, actually, in a way, kind of was a predator. But the shit he did, it wasn't about just assault. It wasn't just about sexual harassment. It was about him just being a fucked up person and lying to everyone close around him, manipulating everyone close around him, taking what he hears from a private conversation, for example, between me and him, and using that against me to make, like, whatever I said seem more invalid to the person he's talking to and making him seem better in that position. That's the problem. And he deserves to be in his position, but he's going to be okay on his own, mental and mentally wise. I don't know, and I don't think it's any of my business at this point. I think after the shit I found out and the shit, like, that he's done, I don't think I want to be a part of his life. So, Mo, you're saying if he told you the whole truth, you'd stay friends with him? No. No. Even if Fed came to me like 3 days ago and told me literally every single thing, there's no way I could be friends with the guy.
Now, beyond Pokimane, FedMyster, and Scarra, a lot of streamers came out and made statements on Fed. Angel's Kimmy made a 34-minute one, Foosley made a 55-minute one, and Yvonne went more in depth on her stream in a 27-minute segment. I could try and cut up and show all of them, but honestly, would be here all night. So if you guys want to look up more statements, you can, but I think we got the general gist of what's going on here. While what's going on here is not nearly as severe as a lot of the other allegations coming out from other gaming creators over the past couple weeks, it does seem like FedMyster has a lot of problematic traits that has all culminated into all these people speaking out against him. If you want to know what I think about this, Some Ordinary Gamers thinks about this, Nicholas Diorio and Augie RFC, we all reacted to the TwitLonger for the first time on a live stream. The link to that will be in the description below, as well as the end card. Speaking of the end card, I think it's about time to end this video. If you enjoyed it and would like to see more, don't forget to subscribe with notifications on, and follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with everything going on over there. Thank you so much to my channel members for supporting the channel, in particular Josh Pescator, Estemic, Mr. Personality, and the Dank Memes Play, for all donating $30 a month. And with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another video.